So originally, I was going to make a video where I watched an anti-flat earth documentary and debunked all the claims in that video, but I realized it is a much better idea to just answer all the questions I would have had when I first heard about this for the first time. So that's what I'm going to do here. First, we have boats go over the curve. Then what about rockets / the moon landing? Satellites orbit the Earth. The ISS orbits the Earth. How is there a sunset? I have seen the curve of the Earth. We have known the Earth is a globe for years. Why are we the only flat planet? Anti-flat Earth documentaries. Why lie about the shape of the Earth? Now, all of these claims are so easily debunkable, and I'll put timestamps up for those who want to skip ahead. If boats going over the curvature of the Earth is an explanation that gets you to believe in the globe, then what you're about to see should undoubtedly prove the Earth is flat.
Do you think the Earth is round or flat?
Round.
Round?
Yeah.
It's obvious, right? No question?
No question at all.
Okay, so how can you prove that to me right now?
I can't right now. I don't know how I'd prove it to you right now. Do you want me to pull out my phone and show you stuff on the internet? Because that's what I can do. 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 That's what I can do.
Like, just give me like some facts or like some statements that like proves that the Earth is round. Like without showing me an image of the Earth. Can you do that?
Off the top of my head, no.
Prove to you right now that it's round? Huh. I don't know. I probably couldn't really.
I cannot prove that. I just went to school and they say that to me and suppose that's real.
We've been told that our whole lives, so I can't prove anything.
Look at a tall ship sailing out over the water. Eventually you'll start to lose sight of the bottom of the ship until the point where all you can see is the very top of the mast because of the curvature of the Earth. The curvature of the Earth. The curvature of the Earth.
You show them how the math works for the curvature of the Earth. Curvature of the Earth. Curvature of the Earth. Curvature of the Earth. How you're not going to be able to see something once it's past a particular point on the horizon via the curvature. Curvature.
You can just tell by looking if you can see the distance. There is natural curvature to the Earth.
Ships sail away. They don't disappear all at once. No, first, the bottom will disappear. See, the bottom of the ship is gone. Now we can see midway up, and then the whole thing disappears. Now, ships came back. They didn't fall off a table. So people realized that the world is curved. I mean, it's a big curve, but it's curved. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. The world is round.
Boats vanish beyond the horizon due to perspective and not the curvature of a round Earth, as demonstrated here with the white cap being the boat and the countertop being the flat Earth. And the camera will be at ground level, as you can see, the white cap in the bottom right corner. Now watch as we move it away. It disappears slowly, then it's totally gone out of your view. Doesn't mean it went over a round counter, does it? Just means it went out of your line of sight due to perspective. But as you can see here, if you zoom in with the camera, you're gonna find that it pops right back into view, proving that it did not disappear due to curvature, but due to perspective, and boats do the same thing. So, where do boats go? The same place the white cap goes. Beyond the vanishing point, our line of sight. It's called perspective. It's always there. You just can't see it with the naked eye. But when you zoom in with the camera, it pops right back into view, proving that it doesn't go over curvature.
Now, if we look at how much the Earth is supposed to curve, so 6 feet every 3 miles, are you seriously about to tell me that there's curvature 3 miles in any of these pictures? You know, I've seen with my own eyes there's no curvature. Have you ever driven on a mountain ridge and looked out upon the Earth? You can see towns and buildings that are 10, 20 miles away, and there's no curve. That right there is no curve. There, you can see it for yourself. The Earth is flat. What about rockets, and what about the moon landing? First, rockets sent by NASA always curve off. They don't actually go into space. Second, the moon landing is so clearly fake. You're telling me there are footprints of people walking on the moon, but the moon was not damaged from thrusters of a rocket ship landing? Are you kidding me?
The lunar lander was never even once tested on Earth, landing here from any altitude before supposedly going and successfully landing on the moon. There, this pathetic cardboard and tinfoil construction allegedly fell from lunar orbit at 4,000 miles per hour, then used retro thrusters to slow it down and safely landed without a hitch on the lunar surface. When the astronauts did practice in other training vehicles, 3 out of 5 of them crashed, and you can see here how difficult they were to control, even in broad daylight, on Earth, in optimal conditions. The idea that the actual lunar lander was never once tested on Earth, but then made a perfect landing on the moon, is one small step for lying Freemasons, and one giant leap for brainwashed mankind. This is a 7,500-pound thruster. Look how powerful this is, how big, how much dust it kicks up, and the light it creates. The lunar lander's thruster was even bigger, at 10,000 pounds, and somehow didn't kick up any dust, left no blast crater under the craft, and not a grain of sand on the landing pads, as if it was gently placed down by a crane in a studio. Here we see the lunar lander redocking with the command module. This is clearly fake and made with props, models, and footage similar to the Hollywood creations of the day, such as Stanley Kubrick's 2001 Space Odyssey, created in 1968, the year before the first supposed moon landing. Look at the jerky, unrealistic motions and lack of thrusters being used. The craft is just being turned like a Rubik's Cube somehow, all of this supposedly happening as they both orbit the moon at 4,000 miles per hour. Since many people can't believe this is genuine footage, let me assure you, this is actual, official NASA footage of the Apollo 11 redocking. The second thing people asking this question generally fail to realize is the prevalence and potency of secret societies in the world, the amount of control they wield, the degrees of secrecy sworn, and how many other so-called conspiracy theories are actually legitimate conspiracy realities. Anyone who has read my previous books, The Atlantean Conspiracy, The Flat Earth Conspiracy, or Flatlantis, will be familiar with the research and abundant evidence that exists proving these conspiratorial alternatives to many mainstream media fictions, along with how secret societies like the Freemasons and Jesuits create and control such contrivances. Most people are unaware, for example, that Freemasonry, the world's oldest and largest secret society, exists in almost every country, with over 5 million members worldwide, all blood oath bound and sworn to secrecy every degree they rise. They are unaware that Masons like John Robison and Captain Morgan have actually blown the whistle and both paid the ultimate price after publishing their books divulging the secrets of Masonry. People are also unaware, for example, that nearly every astronaut NASA claims to have sent to space is actually a confirmed Freemason. John Glenn, two-time US Senator and one of NASA's first astronauts, is a known Mason. Buzz Aldrin Jr., the second man to lie about walking on the moon, is an admitted ring-wearing, hand-sign-flashing, 33rd degree Mason from Montclair Lodge No. 144 in New Jersey. Edgar Mitchell, another supposed moonwalker aboard Apollo 14, is an Order of Demolay Mason at Artesta Lodge No. 29 in New Mexico. James Irwin of Apollo 15, the last man to lie about walking on the moon, was a Tejon Lodge No. 104 member in Colorado Springs. Don Eisel on Apollo 7 was a member of the Luther B. Turner Lodge No. 732 in Ohio. Gordon Cooper, aboard Mercury 9 and Gemini 5, was a Master Mason in Carbondale Lodge No. 82 in Colorado. Virgil Grissom, on Apollo 1, Mercury 5, and Gemini 3, was a Master Mason from Mitchell Lodge No. 228 in Indiana. Walter Schirra Jr., on Apollo 7, Sigma 7, Gemini 6, and Mercury 8, was a 33rd degree Mason at Canaveral Lodge No. 339 in Florida. Thomas Stafford, on Apollo 10 and 18, Gemini 7 and 9, is a Mason at Western Star Lodge No. 138 in Oklahoma. Paul Weitz on Skylab 2 and Challenger is from Lawrence Lodge No. 708 in Pennsylvania. NASA astronauts Neil Armstrong, Alan Shepard, William Pogue, Vance Brand, and Anthony England all had fathers who were Freemasons. And C. Fred Kleinecht, the head of NASA during the Apollo program, shortly afterwards became the sovereign Grand Commander of the 33rd degree of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. The amount of astronauts known to be Freemasons, or from Freemasonic families, is far beyond coincidence, and should raise serious suspicion from any sovereign-minded skeptic. The final point people asking this question should consider and research is the fact that there have already actually been several such leaks and whistleblowers. Most globe defenders simply have not done their due diligence in researching the subject, and just assume that if something hasn't been widely reported by the mainstream media, that it didn't happen. NASA's senior program analyst and lead data visualizer, otherwise known as Mr. Blue Marble, Robert Simon, creator of the popular Blue Marble NASA images of Earth, exposed in an interview how NASA's Earth images are not photographed, but in fact photoshopped, and created completely through CGI artistry. "My job is mostly taking datasets and making pictures out of them," he said in the interview. "The Earth is photoshopped, but it has to be." Matthew Boylan, a hyper-realist painter and vocal flat earther who claims to be a former NASA operational graphics manager, has also blown the whistle, saying that NASA's sole reason for existence is to propagandize the public and promote the false heliocentric model of the cosmos. He claims to have done various projects photoshopping images of the Earth, stars, and planets, and has relayed anecdotes about meetings with NASA officials where they openly admitted the entire hoax and laughed hysterically at the brainwashed zombies who unquestioningly believe their televisions. In a live 2014 television interview with Bulgarian News 7, Soviet cosmonaut Igor Petrovich Volk, awarded the Hero of the Soviet Union Medal, said outright that, quote, "We have never been to space, and if somebody claims otherwise, it is not true." Buzz Aldrin, visibly inebriated in a 2015 interview with an 8-year-old girl named Zoe at the National Book Festival in Washington, D.C., was asked, "Why has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?" After a pause, he answered, "That's not an 8-year-old's question. That's my question. I want to know, but I think I know. Because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened. And if it didn't happen, it's nice to know why it didn't happen, so in the future, if we want to keep doing something, we need to know why something stopped in the past that we wanted to keep it going." Even more recently, in a live 2019 television interview, the first and last Polish astronaut and national hero, Miroslaw Hermazowski, 40 years after his flight to space, when asked, "You have been there. Is the Earth really a sphere hanging in outer space?" he shockingly replied, "Earth is flat, as some have suspected. I didn't expect this question, but I assure you, it is flat." On April Fool's Day, NASA officially launched their Artemis II rocket, claiming to take humans back to the moon in 2026. Going back to the moon, however, would require us having actually gone there before, which myself and many other researchers have debunked beyond any shadow of a doubt in several previous videos, showing that the original NASA moon landings were faked in a studio on Earth. So now, over 50 years later, with half a century of technological developments, Artemis II isn't even claiming to land on the moon like Apollo, but merely flying by. So what proof are we being given that NASA is really sending people in orbit around the moon? As usual, we are shown a rocket launch from Kennedy Space Center in Florida, which performs the same parabolic arc that every rocket, missile, and other projectile shot into the sky does. Rather than shooting straight upwards towards the moon, which would be far more logical and look much more convincing, every rocket launch arcs from vertical to horizontal, and most you can even see beginning to arc back down to Earth before leaving view. NASA's excuse for this is that they are purposely doing this parabolic arc with all their rockets because of a super high-tech gamer gravity hack where the rockets are being caught in a gravity well that works like a slingshot to help propel them better to the moon. Yes, you heard right. The reason all these NASA rockets form a parabolic arc and look like they're about to drop into the ocean a few miles away is because going down is the best way to go up. So, all the NASA nerds will look down their bifocals at you, smugly explaining what their overlords told them about gravity and slingshots, while they watch rocket after rocket launched eastwards from Fort Lauderdale, making parabolic arcs directly towards the Bermuda Triangle. Watch closely as the rocket goes from vertical to horizontal and out over the ocean, away from all observers' views. In one instant, it just disappears from view completely. Where has it gone? It goes from being clearly visible to there just being nothing discernible whatsoever, like it just vanished into thin air. Strangely enough, That's the second time a flying object just vanished into thin air that day. Watch this footage from just before the Artemis II was preparing to launch, and pay close attention to the airplane that flies into view from the right-hand side of the screen. Where did it go? The plane just completely vanishes from view, as if it disappeared behind a giant green screen. Watch it again in slow motion. Another oddity is the following footage showing these cable cars lowering from the rockets during launch. These are known as the emergency escape cable cars, allegedly used to get the astronauts out in the case of an emergency. They sure look like they're being used here at this last moment. How do we know that they're empty? The astronauts could easily have just hopped into those cable cars to be taken to the next studio where they sit in harnesses pretending to be in outer space. Did you know that NASA is the world's largest purchaser of helium? Helium is a stable and very light element used for sending balloons up into high altitude. NASA admittedly uses large amounts of helium to send up its satelloons, but what about these rockets? Look at this image of the Artemis II live on Fox News. What does that look like to you? Honestly looking, without bias, doesn't that look like a giant inflatable blow-up toy? Look at the seams and creases. Once the rocket is out of the public's view, after a couple minutes of genuine launch footage, true to form, NASA always switches to CGI. We can never get full, live, unedited video focused straight ahead of the rocket, or with a view focused on Earth. All we ever get is launch footage, cut to CGI like this for an hour, then whenever they're ready to restart the so-called live feed, here's what we get. Always a view with huge portions of the screen taken up by large random pieces of the craft. Then long blue screen outages lasting for minutes or sometimes hours, only to come back with another similar video of another large section of the craft in the foreground. Look at the supposed Earth in these videos. Why is it shaped like that? In every other image and video NASA releases of the Earth, it is perfectly circular. Why is it squished here? How can the Earth suddenly change shape this drastically? They always claim Earth is an oblate spheroid, but this is one of the only times I have ever seen NASA showing Earth actually looking that way. Also, where are all the satellites and stars? There should be tens of thousands of satellites floating around up there, but we never see any of them whizzing by. Another thing I guarantee we won't see is independent video from people filming with super zoom cameras capturing Artemis II during its slingshot around the Earth, nor during its trip around the Moon. P900 and P1000 cameras are able to zoom into the Moon with incredible detail, but I guarantee if we all train our telescopes and cameras to the Moon when Artemis II is supposedly passing by, not a single person will capture video of the rocket passing by the Moon. NASA has already started releasing new Earth images supposedly taken from Artemis II, and they are just as dubious as ever. Again, they are showing us Earth as a crisp, perfect circle/sphere in these images, yet just moments earlier in their live stream, they were showing video of a clearly smushed Earth, looking nothing like the pictures released shortly after. So let's take a closer look at these images. Where are all the continents? We are seeing half of the globe in this image, and there is nothing but ocean and part of Africa. We are supposed to believe that all of North America, South America, Europe, Asia, Australia, and Antarctica are just hiding on the other 50% of the globe? This is just like the famous Apollo 17 image claimed to be one of the only real photographs taken by NASA. If you're going to have Africa take up 50% of your globe, the math just doesn't work for the rest. And what about the lighting? NASA says Earth is fully eclipsing the sun in this picture, putting all of the light of the sun on the other side of the globe. So how is the entire dark side of the Earth shown fully and brightly lit? Or how about this one, allegedly showing the Moon from Artemis II? Why is the Moon much smaller here in outer space than it is on Earth. I have never seen the moon that small, and yet NASA claims this picture was taken by the Artemis crew halfway from Earth to the moon. The reality is, these are not real photographs. In fact, you can take these new images just released from NASA and run them through an advanced AI filter to check for authenticity and see for yourself. These images do not even pass AI scans for authenticity and are all coming back as confirmed CGI images. People honestly should be able to discern for themselves that these Earth images are clearly CGI, but if you don't trust your own discernment, even AI is telling you that these are not real. From ChatGPT, quote, "This is very likely AI generated or heavily composited. The window frame is unusually thick and irregular, with soft, almost melted looking edges. Real spacecraft windows would be more engineered and consistent. The satellite outside is oddly placed and slightly stylized. Scale and lighting don't quite match orbital photography. The lighting on Earth in the interior frame feels cinematic rather than physically consistent, especially the glow and reflections. The composition is too clean and centered for typical handheld astronaut photography. Also, look at the bright hot spot of sunlight shining at one specific point of Earth. If the sun's light is transferring through 93 million miles of space to reach the Earth, shouldn't it be lit uniformly if that was the case? Why would there be a single bright spot as if being lit locally? Watching otherwise intelligent grown adults being completely duped and stupefied by this propaganda is honestly embarrassing and pathetic. Starry-eyed NASA fanboys are so excited by the prospect of living in their imagined science fiction Star Trek future that they cannot see the deception for what it is. They hear about building bases on the moon and sending humans to colonize Mars, and these ideas, implanted by Hollywood, then fertilized by NASA, have taken such strong roots in their brains that they can no longer see the forest for the trees. For example, I watched the popular YouTuber Some Ordinary Gamers talking about his excitement about this Artemis 2 launch in his recent The Artemis 2 Launch video. The crazy amount of glee and happiness this man was experiencing during the launch, his permanent smile and glassy-eyed wonder, accompanied by his hopes of an off-world future where humanity lives on Mars, just made me sad for how duped the masses truly are. People want to believe they're part of some great exploration of the cosmos, and NASA gives them the ability to be backseat passengers with parasocial relationships. The last thing they want to do is honestly consider the possibility that they're being lied to about the Earth and outer space. So many never even look at the abundant evidence proving their entire worldview is nothing but a patchwork of propaganda and lies.
What about satellites? Did you know that NASA has hundreds of these satellite balloons up in the air right now? I never knew these NASA satellites existed before Flat Earth. Have you seen them? Google and many other companies have fleets of these balloons as well. Look up Project Loon. The fact that NASA and its subsidiaries hardly discuss these so-called satellites was a huge proof for me, because it evinces a deliberate effort to conceal the fact that space satellites don't exist. The whitewash of these balloon satellites is evidence that they are lying about space satellites. These high-altitude balloons can carry 8,000 pounds and include telescopes, radar equipment, communications equipment, internet, etc. Here's one that almost killed some people. Finally, look at these actual NASA videos of satellites. They are manifestly fake. Look at this one. Look at this one. Look at this one. Look at this.
My research of the last year has led me to the conclusion that not even low Earth orbit is possible, that the International Space Station is a hoax, and all manned space travel is fake. First though, let's have a look at the International Space Station. I want to talk about some of the anomalies I see there. For the inside of the International Space Station, there are a couple of zero-gravity tricks that they use to fake it. The first is they have a complete mock-up of the International Space Station built on the inside of an airplane. And that airplane does a bunch of rises and falls. It does a upside-down parabolic trajectory, and that simulates zero gravity. The other main way they simulate the zero gravity is with suspension in front of a blue screen. And they use that trick for extended periods of time, for longer than 45-second segments. But they can't move around as much. They can't do the acrobatic flips and rolls in the extended mode. So there's full motion mode where they can fully move around, and that's faked in a plane. And then there's suspended or extended mode where they're suspended by wires in front of a blue screen. They don't move around as much, but they can make the scene last for a longer period of time. In this scene, Chris Hadfield bends down in order to adjust something, and you can see on the back of his shirt a couple of upticks on either side where you would expect wires to come in on either side of that harness in order to support it. Of course, they've computer graphicked out the supporting wires. You can't actually see them, but what you can see is a very slight discoloration where it's slightly lighter and then it goes slightly darker. And that's strange. That shows a couple of things. First of all, it shows that this isn't live from space. They're often portraying that this is live. Of course, these things are fully choreographed and edited in advance to make sure that there's nothing too obvious that you can see that gives away that this is a suspension in front of a blue screen hoax. The other thing it shows is that this is not raw footage coming to us. This is edited stuff. This is supposed to be a legitimate space program. This is supposed to be the International Space Station, and we should be able to see whatever's going on. But they edit things because the whole thing is edited. In one extended mode scene, Chris Hadfield on the right is going back. He's going back, and then he just stops. That's an odd motion. You would expect if this was true zero gravity that you have to support yourself, you have to stop yourself on both the top and the bottom of your body as you're drifting back. If you just stop yourself with your feet, then your head will rotate backwards. Conversely, if you just hang on at the top with your hands, then your feet will still keep moving. You have to support yourself at both the top and the bottom of your body, but his hands, Chris Hadfield's hands, aren't touching anything. He just goes back and then he stops, and that's odd. You can see a sort of a harness sticking through the t-shirt of Chris Hadfield. It's a harness that's around the waist. That's how they're supported. Also notice that Chris Hadfield has the habit of bringing his knees up. That's because his stomach muscles aren't as strong. He doesn't have as much midriff strength as some of the others who are able to elongate their body and make the hoax look a bit more realistic. He's constantly bringing his knees up because he's not as strong as the others. Occasionally, though, the others bring their knees up too. Notice that in the extended scenes, which seems to be done in front of a blue screen, like if you have a look at this guy going back towards the screen, there's some strange shadows there, look like they're CGI'd in. Using computer graphics, they edit out the supporting wires and edit in these rotating floating objects. They always seem very concerned with the object. Chris Hadfield looks at it very closely. You don't want the object getting too far out of control, because if it starts bouncing off the cabin in a weird way or goes back to the blue screen, it could ruin the whole illusion. They also don't bounce those oranges off the walls. I'd like to see them get a tennis ball and throw it around really hard and fast, and I'd like to see them do-si-do each other really quickly, which they can't do, or they'd get all their wires tangled up. The extended mode is much quieter than the full motion mode. In full motion mode, you can actually hear the sound of the jet engines, the engines of the airplane. In every single scene of full motion mode, in every segment of the International Space Station, you can hear this loud sound, the sound of the jet engines. You could argue that it's the air conditioning system.
Check it out.
Not even an office air conditioner is that loud. And why is there a loud sound in every segment of the International Space Station? That's because no matter how soundproof you make it, you can't filter out all of the sound of the jet engines. An airplane is just too noisy. You can put noise-cancelling headphones on when you're on a plane, and that doesn't stop the sound from getting through. It muffles it. They also use microphones that don't pick up very far away. If you have a look at this scene here, you can see that when the microphone's in the middle, pointing towards the guy in the middle, you can't hear the sound of jet engines as much, but when the microphone goes to the guy on the side, you can hear the sound of jet engines a bit more. So you can't truly soundproof the inside of the airplane where they fake full motion mode. You can see in this scene from the recent National Geographic documentary Live from Space, Koichi Wakata is looking at the window there. This is full motion mode, and you can tell because of the sound of jet engines. In quiet mode, they can go to the copula and they can look through at their model. And you can see an amazing model. Gee, why would you build the International Space Station out of a bunch of long, thin segments that can easily break at the joints? So there's their fairly realistic view of the rest of the International Space Station.
Hello, Rick.
Hello, Dermot. Welcome to the International Space Station.
Oh, it's nice to have you with us. Rick, thank you so much. When did you apply to join the astronaut program yourself?
Well, actually, getting selected as an astronaut's not as easy as it sounds. I started applying many years ago, and it actually took me 9 years and 9 different applications before I was finally selected in 3 different interviews. Oh, absolutely. It went well beyond any expectations I had.
And Koichi, you're the commander of the ISS. Congratulations, the first Japanese commander. What does being commander actually mean?
Well, it's quite an honor and a big challenge for me, but I am humbled to take up this challenge. I'm so happy to be able to work with my very hard-working crewmates, Rick and Misha. And I think I got to see that I have a really talented and motivated crew. I got the easy part. Just to make sure that they're eating fine and they're sleeping fine and just having fun up here. And I need to make sure that we have good communication with the flight control team. It's a wonderful team all over the world. Yeah, I wish, but we work together as an integrated team, and it's really a lot of fun to work with Rick and Misha.
And what's the reaction been like in Japan?
Actually, they really liked watching the change of command ceremony last Sunday, and I had a lot of feedback, and like to many international partners of the International Space Station program, to Japan it means a lot to have its own representative to have a chance to command the International Space Station.
Now have a look at their feet. There's stabilization bars, blue stabilization bars. To balance the rotation. As he moves away from there, he moves forward. And once again, he hangs on to the bar on the side with his left hand to stabilize himself.
from the International Space Station. Hello, Katie.
Hello.
This is so cool, isn't it? Hey, Katie, I want
welcome
to ask
aboard
you a
the space
question.
station.
This is Leah. Look at this. Wow. Are you going to be okay, or? There's a delay, too, so we got to take that into consideration. Katie, can you hear me?
You know, we Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you. Oh, good.
Thing we do, we're weightless, and all the things we're doing it with are weightless as well. So you start off with that teeth brushing thing, and I have to say, you know, spitting, that's going to be a problem. So we swallow our toothpaste, and the day goes weightless from there.
And then what is your average work day? Is it like a real 8-hour day, or? And then what do you guys do? You sit around looking out the windows? Or what do you guys do? This is what I want to know. That scare you?
I won't say they scare me, but I'll tell you that I take them very, very seriously, in that we exercise, you know, about almost 2 hours a day, which I'll say I'm not disciplined enough to do down on the Earth. But I do it up here because the implications of not exercising are really having a tremendous amount of bone loss. And I have a 10-year-old, and I figure I still have a lot of running around to do when I get home.
Katie, I wanted to ask you, other than your family, your son, what do you, as a woman, what do you miss the most?
Jelly beans, but then how to eat these in space, this is truly challenging, because as soon as I open this bag, all of these are going to want to come out. And so I'm going to have just a couple come out.
Japan, and that brings us to Koichi, who's in the Japanese lab Kibo. So Koichi, walk me through what you're working on in this lab.
Yeah, this is an experiment called Spheres. And these satellite robots are specifically designed to function in the microgravity. They contain the software that the scientists are testing.
At first, this looked like a full motion scene to me, but on closer inspection, I think this is a suspended mode scene. When it's sped up, you can kind of see them swinging, and it has the same backdrop as the other suspended mode scenes. And then there's this weird part. Rick Mastracchio puts out his hand and he moves forward. Maybe he's using his feet to wedge himself forward somehow, but it doesn't look like it. The floor is smooth. His foot is behind that blue handle that's attached to the floor that he keeps both of his feet under and keeps shuffling back and forth on. He sticks his left hand out and then he just moves forward. He is Superman. That's how Superman moves forward. He sticks out his arm and he flies.
How can there be a sunset if the Earth is flat? It's all due to the law of perspective. I want you to notice how the power lines merge inward and downward the further they are away from you. And the same thing when you look down a long corridor or a hallway. Notice how the lights on the ceiling merge downward and they seem to get smaller the further away they are. The same way with the doors, the same way with the floor. See how everything merges in and gets smaller the further it moves away from you? And you'll see the same thing here with the street lamps. Notice how they merge inward and downward the further they move away from you. And you get the same thing with railroad tracks. Notice how they merge inward and seem to get smaller towards the end and eventually disappear off into the horizon. And the same thing here. Notice how the tracks merge inward and seem to get smaller. So do the street lamps and the tiers to the right. as they fade off into the horizon. Remembering the ground is level and the objects are in a straight line, just like the bottles that we have on the table here. Notice they're all in a perfect straight line and they're all level, but watch what happens when we change the angle of perspective, as you can see here. Now notice how all the bottles merge inward and seem to get smaller towards the end of the table. Now if this table were longer, the bottles would disappear just like the street lamps and the railroad tracks, because they're going beyond the vanishing point, beyond the limit of our vision. Well, the sun does the same thing, as you can see here. Notice how it merges inward and downward and appears to get smaller in size the further that it moves away from you. That's because it's just going out of your perspective. For instance, look at these street lights. Notice the one up close looks larger, and then they appear to get smaller the further away, and they merge inward and go downward. That's all due to perspective. These street lamps are not going over a curve, they're just going out of your line of sight. So, as you can see, the sun does not set nor does it rise. It only moves in and out of your perspective, your line of sight. And once it moves beyond the vanishing point, you just can't see it anymore. Kind of like a sunrise, for example. Take these street lamps. See how they merge inward and they seem large up close and they seem to get smaller the further away? Well, the same thing happens with a sunrise. If you watch the sun rise, as you can see here, notice how the further away the sun is, the smaller it appears, and as it gets closer, it appears to get larger, just like the street lamps, just like the railroad tracks, just like a hallway. It's all due to perspective, and it also depends on your location, where you are positioned at when you are looking at the object that is moving away from you or moving toward you. Now, some people will see the sun directly over the head moving in a straight line, depending on which time of the year it is and what country you're in. But as you notice here, the sun appears to get smaller the further that it moves away, just like the street lamps. It's not going over a curve, it's just going out of your line of sight. And like I said, also it depends on your location and your position. Say, for instance, here, notice how the street lamps seem to merge to the left and downward. Okay, now watch as we move directly in line with them. Now you see how they're all in a straight line, merging downward towards the horizon. Now watch what happens when we get on this side of them. Okay, now notice how they merge inward and downward to the right. Like I said, it all depends on your location and where you're positioned at as the sun passes and is moving out of your line of sight. For example, if I move this bulb across this string, which is tied perfectly level across this countertop, it just looks like it's moving in a straight line. But let's look at it from down on the flat earth point of view, using the line of bottles as our horizon. As you can see, the light bulb is not going over a curve, it's going straight across the counter, across the string. It just appears that way due to perspective. Now, for example, let's look at it on a smaller scale. Take a person that is walking away from you, like right here. You notice the field goal and the bleachers are all at ground level. Now watch what happens when the guy walks beyond your perspective, beyond your line of sight. Now you see, if this flat football field continued on and on, you eventually wouldn't see this guy anymore. He would disappear totally out of your line of sight. Now we all know that there's no big curve in the middle of this football field. So now I hope you can understand that the sun does not set nor does it rise. It merely only moves out of your line of sight due to perspective.
This week, Dude Perfect, a YouTube channel famous for making sports trick shot compilations, has made their ultimate trick shot, turning our flat Earth into a globe. So as they go up in the rocket, the first thing to notice is that the horizon is flat and rises with the camera all the way up. If the horizon was actually the physical curvature of a globular Earth, as claimed by NASA, then the horizon would stay fixed where it was as the craft climbed, and you would have to tilt your head down further and further the higher you climbed to be able to even see the Earth out the window. But that is never the case. They go all the way up, supposedly to 200,000 feet, and the horizon is right outside the window, climbing with them the whole way up. You'll notice the horizon remains flat for most of the video as well, until he brings the camera close to the window, and it becomes obvious that this is, as usual, a fisheye lens camera, and not a normal lens. Fisheye lens cameras warp everything, convex, so as to appear globular. It's able to fit more into the image, but it produces an incorrect image, and it curves the horizon, and if you film the Earth, it makes the Earth look like a globe. So this is the main method used by NASA and other space organizations to trick people into thinking our flat Earth is a globe. The other method is straight up CGI. They just use cartoons. If you investigate any globe image or video with a critical eye, you'll notice that every single one either uses a fisheye camera or is completely a CGI creation. So he brings the fisheye camera to the window, and you can see clearly that the curvature of the Earth changes drastically as he tilts the camera. That is, of course, because you are not looking at the curvature of the Earth, but rather the curvature of the lens, which, just like this, will always change drastically depending on how you tilt it. The same thing happened with the Red Bull dive. That one tilted so much that it went inverted at points, and the convex Earth became concave. And so that's just how fisheye lens cameras work. Then the next part of the trick shot is the zero-G effect, in which they unstrap their seatbelts, and for a short period of time they are free-floating within the aircraft. And to the average globe zombie, they think this is because they have reached a high enough altitude that they are beyond the reach of gravity, and gravity can't grab them anymore. And so they're in the floaty vacuum space, where they can just float infinitely. And again, that's what your average globe defender believes. They think these people here floating around for 1 or 2 minutes. Remember, this whole flight from takeoff to landing is only 12 minutes. So this little part here where they're floating around, people actually think that's because they're at the edge of space and there's not enough gravity to hold them to their seats right now. But meanwhile, people do understand there's such a thing as zero-G planes, right? Zero-G flights. What those are is planes that do parabolic maneuvers so that you are free-falling within the plane at the same speed that the plane is falling. In other words, they're just skydiving within a plane. This Blue Origin capsule does the same thing. So zero-G planes doing so-called zero-G maneuvers produce this weightless effect at any altitude. By doing aerobatic maneuvers called parabolas, what they usually do is climb with a pitch angle of 45 degrees using engine thrust and elevator controls. Then, at a maximum height, they point downward at high speed. The period of weightlessness begins while ascending and lasts all the way up and over the parabola until reaching a downward pitch angle of 30 degrees, at which point the maneuver is repeated. So that's how they do it with zero-G planes. And that's how the people in this footage are achieving weightlessness. And it's no different with this Blue Origin craft. From a period before they reach their peak, through the peak, and onto the downturn, the period during that parabola is the zero-G period, where weightlessness is achieved. So that's what these Blue Origin fake space flights are doing. When they get to the desired altitude, they release their seatbelt, experience weightlessness for a couple minutes, take some video of the Earth with a fisheye lens camera, then strap back in and parachute back down to our level, plain Earth. And because of the popularity of the flat Earth subject, when he lands down, of course someone has to ask him, "So is the Earth flat?" And he says, "No, it's round."
Is the Earth flat? Not flat, I can confirm it's round.
Round like a coin, or round like a ball? Both are round. For those of you not so gullible to fall for fisheye lens trickery and zero-G antics, there is abundant actual proof of the shape of the Earth beyond these fake trick shots. My book, 200 Proofs Earth is Not a Spinning Ball, has been translated into over 30 languages, has been made into a documentary, has been read and viewed by tens of millions of people, and is available for free. I invite you to watch this documentary.
Commercial airplanes have these curves in the window, and when people look outside, they think the Earth is curved. But if you go on a mountain, you can see it's an extended flat plane. Okay, there might be a hill blocking you, you gotta find the right spot, but you can go anywhere and see for yourself and know 100% for a fact the Earth is flat.
Now, another way that you can tell that we're on a sphere is to think about how there's something called the tropics on the Earth. And the tropics are places near the equator of the Earth where sometimes the sun is overhead in the sky. And this was actually something that the Greeks used not only to prove that the Earth was round about 2,000 years ago, but they actually measured the circumference of the Earth accurate to within just a couple percent. There was a really brilliant Greek scientist called Eratosthenes, and Eratosthenes noticed that there was a town called Syene, and on a certain date, the sun would actually shine straight down to the bottom of a well. That meant the sun was directly overhead. You could look down a well and see the sun shining back at you. And on the very same date, farther away in the city of Alexandria, that didn't happen. The sun was not directly overhead. It was a slight angle. And all that Eratosthenes did was he measured the difference in the angle of the sun. And he rationed that that change in angle from one city to another was probably indicative of us being on a curved surface. So another really simple proof is that on any given date, at different cities and different places around the world, the sun is at different angles in the sky. That wouldn't happen if the Earth wasn't round.
For her second supposed proof, Michelle tells the story of Eratosthenes, who noted that at noon during the summer solstice in Syene, the sun cast no shadow and the rays could reach straight to the bottom of his well. Yet meanwhile, in Alexandria, a vertically standing metal rod cast a significant shadow. By factoring the length of the shadow with his assumed distance to the sun, Eratosthenes recorded a measurement of Earth's circumference close to what heliocentrist astronomers still use today. The fact of the matter is, however, that Eratosthenes' calculations were made assuming the sun to be millions of miles away, so that its rays would fall perfectly parallel even in points as divergent as Syene and Alexandria. This faulty assumed premise led to his faulty conclusion, which was eventually exposed upon the invention of the nautical sextant. Using sextants in plane trigonometry, by measuring the sun's angle at 2 points on Earth simultaneously and factoring their distance from each other, the Pythagorean theorem reveals both the height and dimensions of the sun. Using this method, the sun and moon have repeatedly been calculated to be approximately 32 miles in diameter, 3,000 miles from the surface of the Earth. High-altitude balloon footage has also filmed lighting hotspots on clouds, proving the sun to be local and acting as a spotlight, and not a burning ball of gas millions of miles away as supposed by heliocentrists. After Eratosthenes, the globe-Earth theory completely disappeared from philosophical thought and recorded history for almost 2 millennia. Geocentric flat Earth cosmologies continued to reign supreme, with even Eratosthenes himself touted as the father of geography, depicting the Earth as flat in his famous 194 BC map of the world.
Then there are some other proofs that are a little more obscure, but they're actually really lovely. And one is to observe what happens during a lunar eclipse. Now, a lunar eclipse happens when the Earth casts a shadow on the moon. What's happening in that case is that the sun is on one side of the Earth is in the middle, and it's casting a shadow. The Earth is casting a shadow on the moon. And as the shadow moves across the moon, you'll notice that the shadow is curved, it's round. So something like the sun that's bigger than the Earth and is able to cast a shadow of the Earth on the moon can actually show you the shape of the Earth.
Her final and most ridiculous supposed proof of the shape of the Earth beneath our feet is accomplished by looking at a light in the sky. That's right. When you ask scientists for empirical, measurable proof of the shape of the Earth beneath our feet, they inevitably turn their noses up to the sky and start talking about the shape of things up there. Imagine inviting a contractor over to your house to measure the dimensions of your floor, and he immediately gets out his tape measure and starts measuring all the recessed lights in the ceiling. To this day, heliocentrists still offer this argument as proof of a spherical Earth, claiming that during lunar eclipses, the Sun, Earth, and Moon align in a perfect 180-degree syzygy like 3 billiard balls, causing the Sun to cast the Earth's shadow onto the Moon. This clever but faulty assumption is rendered completely invalid, however, due to the fact that lunar eclipses have happened and continue to happen regularly when both the Sun and Moon are still visible together above the horizon. As early as the time of Pliny the Elder, there are records of eclipses happening while both the Sun and Moon were visible in the sky, and continue to be recorded by the Royal Astronomical Society today. Obviously, if the Sun and Moon are both observable simultaneously during an eclipse, then they are not aligned in a 180-degree syzygy, and it is therefore impossible that the Sun could be casting Earth's shadow on the Moon, and some other explanation must be sought. Another explanation, in fact, already existed in many cultures around the world, who posited that a third celestial body, known as Rahu, or the Black Sun, also existed, equal in size to the Sun and Moon. This translucent dark body passed affront the Sun and Moon during eclipses, causing their lights to dim. But regardless of what causes the Moon's lights to dim during lunar eclipses, it has absolutely nothing to do with offering scientific proof of the shape of the Earth.
So people have known that the Earth is spherical for thousands of years. It's not okay to say that the Earth is flat. This is some sort of strange denial. I don't know where it comes from. And it's something where I keep getting this question. We really need to put this question to bed because we've known the Earth is a sphere for a long time. I actually said this to somebody, I couldn't believe they'd never thought of it, that, with binoculars you can see planets. You can see Saturn and Jupiter, you can see Mars with a telescope, the Sun, the Moon, everything else you see in the solar system is a sphere. So we're the one thing that is different. And that actually made somebody who was more interested in actually hearing information, that actually got them to think. They're like, you're right, everything else we take a picture of is a sphere.
And again with the appeal to the sky fallacy. The only place we see spheres in the sky is NASA's CGI photos and videos. When amateur astronomers photograph and record the stars and planets, here's what we see. Are these spheres? Are these spheres? And even if they were spheres, what on earth does that have to do with the shape of the Earth?
The solar system does not exist, and due to a lot of mind control, when people hear the term flat Earth, they think of a flat disk spinning in a solar system, when in reality, the sun is not 93 million miles away.
I received an email the other day from a flat Earth investigator asking a bunch of typical questions about the flat Earth. In his email, the investigator included a link to one of the many YouTube-promoted flat Earth debunking videos out there. Apparently, the investigator's brother used it as proof of the curvature. The lies make me literally sick, but I need you to watch this short clip from the video. Here we go.
A few years back, the Discovery Channel had a program where they used lasers and telescopes to show that the surface of a large lake was curved due to the curvature of the Earth.
Let me know when you can see us on spots of the horizon. All right, Brian, how many feet are we above the lake?
24 feet.
The Flat Earth proponents responded to this program with a series of videos on YouTube.
I'm going to go with CGI on that whole helicopter thing because people would say, oh, look, well, what do you mean it's CGI? You saw the helicopter? Yeah, I also seen giant robots fighting in downtown Chicago. That doesn't make it real.
All of which supposedly show errors made by the people behind the Discovery Channel program. What drives this sort of stubborn refusal to deal with reality? Part of the problem is that even the simplest demonstrations, like Wallace's or the Discovery Channel's, require careful preparation and specialized equipment. Not everybody has access to a helicopter and a telescope to do these sorts of tests. That's often a complaint that the Flat Earth people make. They need to personally experience the evidence, rather than trusting the measurements of other people.
Yeah, like, we need a helicopter to measure the supposed curvature. But I do think it's awesome that D. Marble got it absolutely right, but we'll get back to that. It's also funny that that's the same D. Marble who proved with a laser that there was absolutely no curvature at a distance of 10 miles, much further than the Discovery Channel's bogus helicopter claim. But what makes the PBS video, and to be clear, it wasn't the Discovery Channel, but PBS's series called Genius, but what makes the PBS video so rotten is that this helicopter event was entirely fabricated and it's provable. I made a video on it a while back. Remember, PBS claimed that the helicopter descended behind the curvature and then came up from behind the curvature of the Earth back into view of the telescope. But as you will see, when the helicopter descends, there is a group of birds with a peculiar flight pattern. And then when the helicopter subsequently ascends, the same birds appear and in the same exact flight pattern. Not only that, the waves match as well. Only the image of the helicopter changes, meaning that the helicopter video was added.
As it lands,
I got him. I got him.
As it lands,
without question, PBS lied and faked the curvature. And this isn't some simple mistake. This was intentional, as it took serious effort to add a fake image of a helicopter supposedly hiding behind the curvature of the Earth. Why would PBS lie about the curvature? So, to the individual who emailed me that link, send your brother the proof that PBS lied to him and is still used by globe propagandists as proof of the curvature. But here's another big lie about the curvature, this time by National Geographic. Here's a clip from an old video I made on the subject.
But sure enough, as the boat reaches the horizon, the stripes begin to disappear one by one.
It's pretty amazing. You can actually see it pretty clearly with this camera here. And you see that the red stripe that was at the bottom has completely disappeared, and it's now getting closer to sort of the middle green stripe, that is.
So we've lost about 1.5 stripes.
Right. So this can only happen, why?
Because of the curvature of the Earth.
There are several photographs and videos of the Louisiana Lake Pontchartrain Causeway and transmission lines showing what globe enthusiasts claim to be visual proof of the curvature of the Earth. In the footage, the bridge and transmission lines, when viewed from a certain angle and height, appear to curve downwards as they tend toward the horizon, and this apparent curvature is claimed to be proof of the globe. The first thing to notice when considering this footage is that the curvature is not at all uniform, as it must be on a globe. Instead, there is almost no apparent curvature in the foreground, and far too much curvature appearing in the background near the horizon. If you trace a circle completing the curve in these pictures, it is clear that they cannot be showing the curvature of a globe nearly 25,000 miles in circumference. The bridge itself is just under 24 miles long, and a circle traced over the radically curving section near the horizon would represent a tiny globe, only a few hundred miles in circumference maximum. This shows that the alleged curvature is actually a visual phenomenon and not a physical one. In fact, by placing a series of identical blocks on a flat table and filming from a similar height and angle, the exact same seeming curvature effect can be achieved. Visually, it appears as if the blocks toward the back of the table are getting shorter, or that the table itself is curving downwards. But in reality, we know the table is perfectly flat, and the blocks are all equal height. Likewise with the Lake Pontchartrain transmission towers, visually it appears as if the towers in the background are getting shorter, or the lake itself is curving downwards. But in reality, we know the towers are all equal heights, and Lake Pontchartrain is perfectly flat. How do we know that Lake Pontchartrain is perfectly flat? Because water does not have the physical capability of showing convexity upon its surface. All water, when contained and undisturbed, forms a horizontal level across its surface, and is incapable of maintaining any kind of curvature or height differentials. Whether in a beaker, bottle, or bathtub, a pool, lake, or an ocean, the natural physics of water remain the same. Globe apologists will claim the mythical force of gravity somehow causes lakes and oceans to bend in conformity with their fantastical ball Earth. But, conveniently, of course, only at a scale too large for them to recreate. In reality, no matter what the scale, all contained, undisturbed bodies of water are demonstrably flat, including the 24-mile expanse of Lake Pontchartrain. This becomes obvious when viewed at altitude, as the entire lake and causeway can be seen with a perfectly flat horizon above them. With the use of high-altitude balloons, it becomes even more obvious, as they reach heights of over 120,000 feet, capable of seeing for hundreds of miles in all directions. Ironically, when confronted with these flat horizons, globe Earth apologists use the exact opposite excuse, and no matter your altitude, always claim you simply aren't high enough to see the curvature. In other words, they claim at ground level the Lake Pontchartrain bridge and transmission towers are bending around the physical curvature of their globe just 24 miles away. But at high altitudes, where we can see for hundreds of miles in all directions, that is somehow not high or far enough to see the curve.
There are probably hundreds, if not thousands, of these fake flat Earth documentaries. There are probably YouTubers that have been paid to lie. It would take a whole video to go over the anti-flat Earth agents and the people purposely spreading flat Earth misinformation.
Our eyes and experience tell us the Earth is flat and motionless, and everything in the sky revolves around us. But when we cease to believe our own eyes and experience, we have to prostrate ourselves at the feet of these very pseudoscientists who are blinding us, treat them as experts, astronomical priests who have special knowledge only they can access, like the Hubble telescope. So by brainwashing us of something so gigantic and fundamental, it actually makes every other kind of lesser indoctrination a piece of cake. Earth being the flat, fixed center of the universe around which everything in the heavens revolves gives a special importance and significance not only to Earth, but to us humans, the most intelligent among the intelligent designers' designs. By turning Earth into a spinning ball thrown around the sun and shot through infinite space from a godless Big Bang, they turn humanity into a random, meaningless, purposeless accident of a blind, dumb universe. So it's like trauma-based mind control, beating the divinity out of us with their mental manipulations. People are always asking, why do they do this? Other than the obvious profit margin motive, NASA being the biggest black budget black hole in existence, sucking in over $30 billion taxpayer money for the fake moon landings alone. Nowadays, hundreds of billions of dollars, and not just NASA, but RASA and all the other fake space organizations around the world, giving CGI images for hundreds of billions of dollars. So this modern atheist Big Bang heliocentric globe Earth chance evolution paradigm spiritually controls humanity by removing God or any sort of intelligent design and replaces purposeful divine creation with haphazard random cosmic coincidence. And so by removing Earth from the motionless center of the universe, these Masons have moved us physically and metaphysically from a place of supreme importance to one of complete nihilistic indifference. If the Earth is the center of the universe, then the ideas of God, creation, and a purpose for human existence are resplendent. But if the Earth is just one of billions of planets revolving around billions of stars and billions of galaxies, then the ideas of God, creation, and a specific purpose for Earth and human existence become highly implausible. So by surreptitiously indoctrinating us into their scientific materialist sun worship, not only do we lose faith in anything beyond the material, we gain absolute faith in materiality, superficiality, status, selfishness, hedonism, and consumerism. If there's no God and everyone's just an accident, then all that really matters is me, me, me. So they've turned Madonna and the Mother of God into the material girl living in a material world. Their rich, powerful corporations with their slick sun cult logos sell us idols to worship, slowly taking over the world while we tacitly believe their science, vote for their politicians, buy their products, listen to their music, watch their movies, all sacrificing our souls at the altar of materialism.
Touche, my man.
It's a big deception. I'd say it's the biggest cover-up and conspiracy in history. We've been completely deluded for 500 years. Not everybody, but nowadays it's pretty well advanced.
Yeah.
Most of the flat Earth material you'll find still in existence is from the 1800s, and there was quite a debate going on then. So there's still quite a few people unconvinced of the spinning ball theory back then. But nowadays with NASA and all the photo and videos that they give us, people don't really look at too much further for evidence, as they assume that that's all real.